The aliens have already landed. They are everywhere, from our nightmares to our dance clubs. Across the world, our cultures are fascinated by them. We fear them, yet we make fun of them. We can insure ourselves against being abducted by them. We send out probes to find them. Are they only in our minds, or are they really out there? They already seem to have taken us over. Why are we so gripped by the aliens? We don't want to be alone. Somewhere out there, amongst the 100 billion galaxies, there must be other intelligent life, mustn't there? We've always looked to the heavens to find our gods, fascinated by who or what is out there. Now it's aliens from some corner of the universe, finding their way to Earth, perhaps. Look up to the night skies above our cities. A UFO? Or another false alarm? Perhaps there's life on the planet orbiting star 51 Pegasi, which is similar to our Sun and 50 light years away in the constellation Pegasus. Certainly radio telescopes from the international Project Phoenix, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, are trained on it. But who said aliens had to be intelligent? Cosmic bacteria, microbes hitching a ride on meteors or asteroids that hit our Earth. They would be aliens. And some believe it's possible that this is how life came to our infant, barren planet. A chance collision, and a meteor or comet could have brought the necessary microbes to start simple life forms, like the ciliates, evolving on Earth, filling the great primeval oceans. Leap forward 700 million years, and the aliens are back. Only this time, they've got attitude. Luckily, we're most likely to meet aliens at the movies or in the comic books. When we do, they often look like insects. Scary enough when they come from the garden, let alone from Alpha Centauri. They might as well be from another planet, with their antennae, their compound eyes, their numerous legs. All have starred as aliens. They even crop up in accounts of people who claim they've actually been abducted by extraterrestrials. And if you believe some of the polls, that could be as many as 1 in 50 of us. Seeing aliens is always headline news. Perhaps they're modern myths. But perhaps they're for real. In 1980, a few miles from the Sizewell nuclear power plant in England, and close to 2 NATO air bases run by the United States Air Force, an encounter is said to have happened that has been called the most important event in the history of the study of UFOs. For several days there had been reports of strange lights around the twin bases of RAF Woodbridge and Bentwaters. It's claimed that RAF radar had picked up strange signals of a craft coming in over the North Sea at incredible speed. An aircraft had been launched to try and intercept, without success. At RAF Woodbridge, the talk was of an incredible light seen in the forest, which had left strange markings on the ground.
Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt took some men and set out into the forest, intent on nailing the rumor there was a UFO out there. A Geiger counter searched for any unusual levels of radioactivity. The large lights they'd placed in the forest earlier mysteriously refused to work. It wasn't the first equipment failure they were to experience before the night was out. Suddenly, a red light appeared 100 meters in front of them, pulsating through the mist. The airmen tried to radio back to their base, but none of the 3 channels would work. Pictures were taken, but later the film was found to be fogged. The light would appear, then disappear, leading them on through the trees like some mischievous will-o'-the-wisp. After several hours, the light vanished, to be replaced by 3 bright lights in the sky.
According to Lieutenant Colonel Holt's account, the men then returned to base. But other reports claim this was just the beginning of an incredible night of UFO activity.
Troops from the twin bases headed for a clearing in the forest. This time, they'd find what they were looking for. In the middle of the clearing was a round object, pulsing through a strange fog that surrounded it. Suddenly, a red light shot across the sky and then hovered above the object. A brilliant flash of light blinded everyone for a moment. What they saw then terrified them. The white object had vanished. A large, pyramid-shaped craft was in its place. And hovering next to it were 3 aliens. Wing Commander Gordon Williams stepped forward to communicate with them. Their craft had been damaged and needed special electronic equipment that had secretly been flown in from a US Air Force base in Germany.
Were aliens really there?
Well, I would like to ask...
Questions were asked in Parliament, but the Ministry of Defence claimed nothing of defence significance took place. Skeptics suggest the story was a government cover-up for a crash involving an early prototype of the stealth aircraft, or an accident involving a top-secret quantum physics experiment. Whatever the truth, many of us want to believe aliens were involved. After all, our cultures have always been rich in stories of visitations by beasts and monsters. Perhaps the alien is now updating that need. But do they want to help us or destroy us? Martians were on the verge of wiping us out in H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds in 1898. But 10 years later, they were the good guys, with science fiction writers giving them wings like angels. It's a cycle we're still in, never sure if the alien wants to be our friend or our enemy. The dawn of the space age spawned the contactees, People who claimed they'd been visited by friendly Martians or Venusians during the 1950s. It wasn't to last. Aliens turned nasty in 1961. Troubled by recurring nightmares, Barney and Betty Hill underwent hypnosis. What they described dramatically altered the alien agenda and set the trend for alien encounter stories across the world for years to come.
Barney and Betty Hill were driving home through New Hampshire when they saw a bright light ahead. The next thing they recall is being back in the car 2 hours later. Under hypnosis, they told how aliens had taken them into their spacecraft, where painful medical examinations were carried out on them. Semen was taken from Barney and eggs from his wife. They described small, thin creatures with large heads and huge wraparound eyes, probing their minds and their bodies.
Today, thousands of people across the world report incredibly similar accounts of being abducted by aliens. Many rely on hypnotic regression, but critics believe memories retrieved like this are unreliable. Who knows whether the Hill's small alien with wraparound eyes was unconsciously influenced by a similar figure shown in the science fiction TV series The Outer Limits, broadcast only a week before the hypnosis. Alien abduction still grips our imagination, but why? Is the answer in the similarities between traditional myths and certain elements that keep cropping up in abduction stories?
There seemed no reason why they chose her, and when they came, there was nothing she could do to resist. It was the light that woke her, but what she saw was impossible. Perhaps she was dreaming, caught in that half-world between sleep and reality. She tried to wake her husband, but it was as though time had frozen for everyone but herself and the alien. Suddenly, a beam of light shot down and sucked her up into the spaceship.
We've always feared being taken by visitors from other worlds. Fairies who snatched human babies and carried them off to maintain their race. Or more terrifying creatures who steal away our individuality. Vampires who suck out our very souls with our lifeblood. Aliens aren't the first creatures to take us, but what happens when they get us?
When she came round, she found herself in the alien spacecraft, strapped to some sort of operating table. Three small creatures were examining her, probing her with instruments, taking samples, and forcing some kind of implant into her head, leaving a mark that would remain after she'd been returned home. Then one of the aliens stepped forward and came towards her. Paralyzed by his eyes, she felt him probing her mind as he stared at her, taking her very memories in some sort of mind link.
For nearly 40 years now, since the Betty and Barney Hill episode, examination and implants have cropped up again and again amongst hundreds of people who swear they've been abducted. But look further back into cultures where shaman traverse the worlds of man and of spirits, and you'll find intriguing similarities. In some cases, the novice shaman is taken up into space by the spirits and shown every detail of Earth stretched out below. In shamanic lore in Papua New Guinea, evil spirits tear out his skeleton before replacing it with magic bones. Whilst in some Aborigine stories, they implant a crystal into the new shaman's head, giving him knowledge and power. If we're creating aliens in our heads, why do we make them look like they do? Since this type of alien, known as the Grey, appeared in the early 80s on the cover of a bestseller, most of us who see aliens see someone like this little chap. But ETs haven't always been built this way. In Europe, the Nordic is common. Very tall, very blonde, and very helpful to mankind. In America, and spreading fast, it's the classic Grey. But it's not just humanoids coming our way. Some report brain-like creatures running down the road. Or giant lizards from outer space. Or, in South America, hairy beast aliens. Some are good, some are bad, but more often than not, it's the Grey you've got to look out for. And what about how they behave? If we raid the natural world for alien shapes we can understand, perhaps we do the same with their characteristics. We fear the loss of individuality in the insect kingdom. Millions upon millions of workers, soldiers, drones, each with its own allocated task for life, acting solely for the benefit of the collective. Science fiction writers call it the hive mentality and add it to their aliens' faceless characters. But it gets worse. We're horrified when parasitic wasps lay their eggs in beetle grubs and caterpillars. They grow inside until it's time to emerge. They burst out, killing the caterpillar. It's the same principle of reproduction the alien used in the film Alien, only instead of a caterpillar, this time the host was human. When the bombardier beetle sprays acid from its body in a deadly chemical cocktail, that's what the insect aliens do in the film Starship Troopers, dissolving our soldiers. But one alien has come to dominate science fiction and the accounts of abductees, the Grey. Some claim it has a hive mentality, showing no signs of individualism or emotion. But perhaps the real terror of the Grey is that it symbolizes what we fear we might become. If creatures like the Bigfoot represent the earthy, physical side of us, our past, the Grey is our nightmare future, small and skinny with a huge head to hold a large brain, telepathy replacing the need for developed mouths or ears, cold logic replacing emotion. No wonder we fear the Grey.
The examination over, the alien leader led his captive towards a doorway of light. They emerged into a strange room. some sort of heaven, she felt. Suddenly, the alien's thoughts were in her mind, giving a message, a warning. Unless man will accept, he will not be saved, he will not live. All things have been planned. Love is the greatest thing. They do not want to hurt anybody, but because of great love, they cannot let man continue in the footsteps he's going. And man is going to fear because of it.
This message was said to have been given to Betty Andreasen from Massachusetts by her alien abductor in 1967. It suggests mankind will be destroyed unless he mends his ways, a common trait in claims of abduction, and also in ancient myths of the end time, the apocalypse. Mass destruction on the Day of Judgment, one of man's most powerful mythologies. Some modern sects believe a spaceship will rescue them in the last days and return them to a planet that has been cleansed, a new Eden. Galactic Guardians of Paradise. In an age when polls show more people are prepared to believe in aliens than to worship God, is it surprising aliens are the modern horsemen of the apocalypse? And for some, even the instrument of salvation. In an age when science rules and we are uneasy about expressing our deepest fears in terms of magical creatures, should we be surprised that a new mythology might come out of science itself? We can play out our classic myths all over again in a meaningful way. Or is it that simple? What if aliens aren't the successors to our myths at all, but actually inspired them? To our ancient ancestors, beings who came from the sky in fiery spacecraft would be seen as gods or magical creatures. It's highly controversial, but for followers of writers like Erich von Däniken, aliens have been visiting us for thousands of years. Is this 8,000-year-old cave drawing from the Sahara an alien in a spacesuit? Are these Peruvian rock carvings aliens in space helmets? Perhaps visitors from another world were even our creators, altering the DNA in early humanoids, explaining quantum leaps in evolution. And how did ancient man build his great temples? How did he make the apparent leaps from savage hunter to settled farmer, to civilized city dweller, developing writing, the wheel, medicine, even detailed knowledge of our solar system 5,000 years ago in ancient Sumeria?
The Sumerians knew where their gods came from. The Anunnaki were space travelers from a hidden planet in our own solar system. Priests offered them gifts of food and drink, knowing that although immortal, they were flesh and blood.
Ancient Sumeria, ancient Egypt, the great Mayan civilization of Central America, all gave mankind amazing breakthroughs in technology and science. Natural evolution? Or was each one the work of aliens? Whether aliens really exist or are modern myths, creations of the mind, The way the phenomenon fascinates us across the world shows it must be meeting some sort of need. Perhaps it's the same need for explanation and order in the midst of a frightening and chaotic world that the classic myths have answered for centuries. In our perpetual struggle to understand, the alien seems to speak as powerfully to us today as dragons, werewolves, and demons did to our ancestors all those years ago.